Hey family, welcome to Nikki Thomas TV. I am Nikki Thomas. You know me from 102.9 KBLX in the Bay Area, 20 years on the radio in the Bay, and now this is the place for empowerment programming and liberation, Nikki Thomas TV. Today, we've got a really special takeover. Y'all already know I've been working with SF Recovery Theater for a really long time. And sometimes you just have to do an official collaboration. I don't know why we haven't done this sooner, Geoffrey. But let me just give you the proper introduction. Don't say anything yet.
Absolutely.
Don't say anything yet. Okay. So this partnership means everything to us here at Nikki Thomas TV. Their work is truth telling, it's healing, it's Black excellence on stage, in the streets, in the community, heavy on the truth telling part, too. Sometimes, Geoffrey, he be telling the truth where people are, shh, don't say that. But the truth shall set you free. So this episode is called Legacy and Liberation, and we're going to feature two powerful voices today. It's a takeover, so it's not really my show anymore. I know you see Nikki Thomas TV at the bottom there, but it's not my show today, right? So first of all, we have Geoffrey Grier. He's the director of SF Recovery Theater and one of the most soulful, community-centered voices in the Bay. Welcome, Mr. Geoffrey. How are you?
I'm happy. I'm pleasant. I feel great. I feel blessed.
Mm-hmm. And you're looking great, too.
Thank you.
You
I
know,
don't hear that often from my brother, though.
But the skin, no, the skin is popping. Like, what's the skincare routine? That's another show. Never mind.
We'll deal with that later.
And his brother, the legend himself, David Alan Grier, actor, comedian, culture shifter, and the reason we still quote in living color to this day. Welcome, David. How are you?
I'm great. Happy to be here.
Well, Nikki,
we're so happy to have you.
Have you handed over the steering wheel yet?
You know what? I'm going to hand over the steering wheel, but let me just set things up. We're here to talk about Black theater in a world that kind of tries to erase us. This is why I said we're heavy on the truth-telling part. And since this is not just an interview, it's a takeover, it's a moment, I'm going to formally just kind of give you the microphone, Mr. Geoffrey, because, we need a little bit more truth-telling. And why not? So go ahead and take it away. These two of my favorite people, we're going to have a conversation. And, I guess if I can get in where I fit in, I will. But you could just go ahead and jump in.
Well, you're always welcome, Nikki. Always welcome at the table. Truthfully, since that's where we start, I'm really, really happy to have this opportunity to sit down with family, my brother, and the fact that we are still in existence in this time, in this plane, and are able to witness some of the things that have taken place in the world today, while still being able to commiserate on our past and on our history and how we got where we are. I always think about us when we talk. I always think about us in the basement and us at the very beginning, listening to Shindig and putting on our little fake wigs and playing fake guitars with the drums. And it was always a thrill, and it was always a serious business. Oh no, we were deadly serious. You couldn't interrupt the show that we were creating. We were recreating Shindig. For those of you that don't know, you can go Google that. But it kind of set me on the path, and I wasn't able to accept everything about myself until I was able to finally brutally tell the truth. And, I've always been making noise. I've always been loud. I've always had that form of expression. And it wasn't until later in my life that I realized that it really was an artistic form. It really was a medium of communication. So I was either beating the drum, I was playing football, I was hollering, I was running up and down the hallway. I was doing something. It was always some activity. But I think gave me an opportunity to express myself in a vehicle that became normal, if that makes sense. But anyway, just wanted to kind of give that little background as to my truth and really where we are now. Recovery theater represents Black theater to the best of my ability. And that is how we tell our truth and part of how we got here. So I don't know. Dave, what do you remember? What's our past been like?
What do I remember about what?
Us in the basement and us developing.
Well,
How did that
that's
start?
that's growing up, but my path in theater didn't. I mean, I guess you could say it began in the basement,
Mm,
but our play was like any child's play. It was in and of the moment, and it wasn't really about this will be our future calling or vocation. It's more in the moment and entertaining ourselves. I mean, it in a lot of ways, I guess then that is the beginning of theater. Theater is nothing but storytelling. Storytelling started eons ago around a fire to pass the time, and the elders told stories about their day, what happened on the hunting trip. Uh, It was the original television. It was original reality television. So, of course, those stories are expanded and exaggerated and told over and over, passed down the vocal tradition before written language. You learn the stories that were told to you by the elders, and you told them and shared them. So, I guess maybe it was theater.
yeah, I mean, I wasn't, really trying to say, yeah, this is where we started and this is the beginning. I just remember now, and I'm able to make connections only now, that it provided a freedom to me that I didn't really recognize at that time. It just was okay. I know that for this hour, I can cut loose and I can just be totally unhampered, and I didn't realize what I was getting from it until much later in my life, much later in my recovery, much later in my discovery. Because I always have to underscore that recovery theater's theme is that, recovery is nothing more than discovery. We're all about change and growth. And I think that this change and growth, when I look back, some of these vehicles gave me the tools that I needed to do what I'm doing now. So I guess that's what I meant when I said, where do we get our start?
I have a question. I have a question. So,
Absolutely.
so you said what I wrote down here is inner child healing. You said something to the effect of not being able to accept certain things about yourself.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
Oh God, Nikki, you always dig so deep. Yeah, I think that there were things with myself
Mm-hmm.
that I really didn't want to show.
Mm.
I think I felt a certain kind of way. And I mean that in the sense that, I wasn't angry. I just very sensitive. And growing up in Detroit in the early 60s, that was not a feeling that as the oldest child you were.
Mm. Okay, we're losing the sound, but I'm sure it's going to come back. You still with us?
People were going to react.
Okay.
And so, the sensitive side of me was something that I always hid and I wanted to keep undercover. And even so much that when I would hear the word love, my body would kind of shrink. It was almost like eating too much sugar. It's like having too much sugar in your body. You know, when you bite into something, a piece of cake or a pie or cake, and it's so sugary that you almost have a diabetic coma right then and there. It was like the word love when I was coming up was like that. It was so sweet that it was almost too much for me to handle. And that's the best way to describe it. I'm not trying to
Okay,
create
now.
anything, but that was, and those are kind of the notes. I remember something that Iodele said, you know, that our conversation are often the notes, the musical notes
Mhm.
of our history and where we're going and our story. And I think those are one of the notes of my history.
Mhm.
So,
So David, do you have anything similar that was like?
No, because I was the youngest child.
Mhm.
Jeffrey was the oldest. I was the youngest. You know, like in terms of my childhood, no, I didn't really tussle with those the a fear of love. I mean, or what that concept meant. Um,
Or was there something about your
my path was
to accept? Yeah.
well on a personal level. I mean, I didn't think I was attractive. I didn't think I was funny. I didn't think I was smart. You know, these insecurities that I think a lot of young people, especially children, have because we are not fully formed yet. And, you know, and as a child, you're vulnerable to your environment, your teachers, your family, the men in your life, or the absence of, along with the women, and a lot of it is mirrored. That's what we see so often in children. Where did they learn that? Why are they behaving like that? Why do they sound like that? Well, 9 times out of 10, that's a reflection of their environment, or the behavior they saw around them. So you modeled it, and also in terms of I think it's a natural reaction to protect those parts of ourselves in which we feel the most vulnerable. And a lot of times protection, especially in little boys, comes out in violent or posturing violence or dominance. You're not going to scare me. I'll fight you. I will yell louder than you, you know, because I think a lot of what little boys are taught via media, now social media, television, radio, and film were
Mhm.
the media that we were um, subjected to or exposed to. So these were traditional images of manhood, you know, big, bad, brave, never flinching. You know, Jeffrey and I were talking. I think I saw my father cry 2 or 3 times in his life. He lived to be 89 years old. That was at my grandfather's funeral, at my grandmother's funeral, and maybe a couple of times when he got older. But I did not grow up in that kind of touchy-feely male display of emotion, and plus my father left, you know, when I was 10. So the vast majority of my young life was without a father in the house. He was in our lives, but not in the house.
Wow. Wow. Um, yeah.
yeah,
I
I
I
think to just piggyback that, I now it kind of comes to me that at that age, I was 4 years old, or I was 14, and 14 in Detroit was like, you know, it was like enlisting in the army. it was like, okay, there were certain things you could and couldn't do, certain things that you had to present yourself as. And so I felt really overwhelmed, but I didn't want to say it. I didn't have words
Well,
for
you
it.
couldn't.
Yeah.
Where's the avenue for that kind of discussion? Also, it's a matter of survival. When we left, like a lot of kids, we left the front door. We were put on city buses to go to school, um, in the street, in the hallways, in the bathrooms, in the classrooms. So there was a certain mode of behavior in which was the most successful in terms of survival.
Yeah.
Okay, so that did not include vulnerability, crying, any displays of what would be considered, quote, feminine behavior, And by feminine, I mean in the vintage definition, street definition in Detroit is softness.
Mm.
Don't be a
You,
sissy. Don't be a girl.
listen,
Don't be
you
weak.
too soft. You
Yeah.
too soft. Yeah.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of okay, Jeffrey, I know you're feeling vulnerable. Tell us what you're feeling. That wasn't if both in junior high, man, no, man, you wouldn't
No,
survive like that.
no, your answer was, who you talking to? It was
No,
always
no,
that.
are you hurting? I'm fine.
Mm,
So
yeah.
interesting.
I'm fine.
So interesting.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Well, I started down that path of discussion because to me, more recently than ever, some of the pieces that we picked up and we're dealing with, we got a piece called The Psych. The Psych is loosely based on my father's book, Black Rage, and the many issues that people discuss in the privacy of a psychiatrist's office if they're lucky to get there. There's a lot that goes into that. I mean, there's a period of time where you have to acquaint yourself with your therapist. You can spend months building trust so an individual can just talk to you truthfully. Um, the um, the more recent piece that we've got, Tales from the Fentanyl Line. Um, you know, we're just calling it Tales from the Fentanyl Line, but the truth of the matter is this has always been in our life. There's always been a drug issue. In the 60s, it was heroin uh, from Vietnam. It transitioned into I can remember, my best friend Fred. Me and him wanted to be the first blippies in Detroit because back then, as Dave was attesting, all you had was Walter Cronkite, Life magazine. If you wanted legal porn, it was a National Geographic, and maybe Jet magazine and Ebony. That was it. The 6 o'clock news. That's all, folks. But we heard about these people in California who were experiencing something called free love, and they were partying and having a good time. Yeah, a few of them jumped out the windows, but we we wanted to be a part of what was happening. So we wanted to be the first blippies. And I think that being able to say you wanted to do something different allowed me the opening to begin to tell the truth, not just to myself, but to others. And this vehicle of theater or drama or putting on somebody else's shoes unhampered became really, really instrumental to my self discovery. And I could go on and on. I mean, believe me, I could sit up here and talk about all my stuff that I did. But the point is that we have a tool that's already been built in the African American community. I truly believe that Dave and I grew up in a period, you see Wakanda. We grew up in a Wakanda like existence. There were Black excellence everywhere we looked. Doctors, lawyers, you had people down the street, the mortuary people, you had real estate people. It was always the minister. And so it was always surrounded by Black excellence. And so the standard and the bar was high. Um, but I think that for me, at least, it became really, really instrumental for me to remain even keeled, to keep telling the truth as I see it. And hey, I could be on, my vision is off. I wear glasses, you know, so, but I'm not afraid to have somebody correct my vision. And that's something that I learned in the world of theater. You have a person who gives you a direction and may make a constructive criticism. And a lot of us can't take a constructive criticism, but we must learn to do that. We got to learn to listen. So anyway, I'm just kind of laying that out as to why recovery theater has become such a mainstay for our community, and why it is so instrumental, and why this vehicle of communication helps so much. Dave has history and he has experience from the other side that kind of translates what we have been dealing or going with, and can kind of translate some of it. Like he said, he was classically trained. He got an opportunity to really, really experience the great masters. And sometimes that opens your eyes in a way that you couldn't ordinarily open in a classroom or talking to peers. So, thoughts, my brother? Thoughts?
I'm sitting there thinking about, well, what is the importance of theater? And the importance, like, I remember when Black people demanded more positive representation, or just a presence in
Right.
television and film and radio. And I remember when I was a kid, there was an Eastern Airline commercial that was aired, and there was a Black female extra that was in this commercial. And I remember my mother on the phone. She called her girlfriends. They were like, "Girl, turn on channel 4. They have a Black girl in this commercial." We all ran to the television. This woman didn't say anything. It wasn't, I mean, she just floated by the camera and smiled and kept tipping. But that's how big a deal it was to us, because it was so rare. And to see this image, which was not derogatory, over sexualized, racist, demeaning in any way, like she was almost just normal. That's how important it was. Because when you see yourself reflected in mass media, in stories of entertainment, it's you're being told that you exist, that you're a part of this society, um, just like everyone else, like you're a human being. That's very important. That's very important. Um, Sometimes I think we forget how important it is. Like, that was a revolutionary act, just being present, a person of color. That is why I'll tell you a story. When my young daughter, um, during the pandemic, we would do a film club, and I would show her films, and she'd never seen. And I remember I showed her Lilies of the Field, starring Sidney Poitier, and I prefaced it by, so my daughter was in fifth, sixth grade then, and I said, this movie and this actor and this portrayal, this character, are revolutionary. Because one of the first times a young black man was portrayed as a human being, a thinking, intelligent, normal, human being. So we started watching the movie, and about 20 minutes in, she stops and she said, "Well, Daddy, what is so important about this movie?" he's just a regular man. He's just doing what all the other men in the movie are doing. I said, well, that's what's revolutionary about it. Because at the time in 1962 or 3, that was revolutionary. That was revolutionary to see this black man again that wasn't racist or demeaning or buffoonish and just a regular guy. So she grew up in a different world than I did. So we had a long conversation about that, you know.
Wow.
I think
Wow.
about all the times that a friend of my mother's, who's a lifelong, her kids and I, we grew up all together, and they would take us to the movies almost once a week. That was the big deal, to go to the movies once a week, once every couple of weeks. And she would always take us to, like we went and saw Lilies of the Field at the movies. We went and saw Sammy Davis Jr. in his first movie, whatever it was, some cowboy movie. And, we went and saw it. And I can remember, Dave, you might remember this, the excitement in my father's voice when he was telling us about Black Orpheus. He would tell us about Black
Yeah, Daddy loved
Orpheus.
Black Orpheus.
He loved it and I was like, well, I mean, it's just a movie about some black woman. I don't understand why. But he was feeling what Dave is expressing, and I didn't know it at that time. But and I say that, and I wanted to kind of tap into that emotion because where we are today in today's time with the overt and subversive system of erasure that is taking place and the lack of understanding of representation. We're in a very, very, very dangerous place. And it's not just for Black folks, it is about the human race's development, in that, my opinion. So I'm kind of driven even more to continue this path of what I call recovery, which is nothing more than discovery. We're all in about a state of change, and we've got to keep moving forward, lest we tread water and run out of energy. Um, so that's kind of why I wanted to talk and kind of put it out there and just see what came out of this conversation. Um, I've been toying, you know, with the idea. At the great opening of a soldier's play, Dave and numerous other performers had in New York. I got a chance to sit down with Douglas Turner Ward, the author of Day of Absence, and I got a chance to talk to him. And he said, "I said, hey man, I want to do your play. I don't know when." And he just said, "You have full permission. You have carte blanche. Just don't change a word of the text." And you know, that wasn't unusual, for a writer to say, "Hey, man, don't change my words," but it was the sincerity and the depth that the importance he kind of put on it. That there was certain things that he was.
Uh-oh. All right, come back, Geoffrey. Okay, so while we're waiting for Geoffrey to come back.
A day of absence
Okay, here
is
we go.
coming. Yes, I know. Yeah, I can go back and do that. But I wonder if we're at that place where a day of absence should occur.
Mm.
I don't know. I'm just throw that out there. You know, I mean, if it were possible. I mean, the way things are going, where are you going to go? You're not going to go anywhere anyway. But if it were possible, is a day of absence close by?
Mm. So, well, and I'll
You know, I was just gonna say, I was thinking more along the lines of when we started this, you mentioned Black theater, Jeffrey. What is Black theater? And I remember listening on the radio when August Wilson debated Robert Brustein about, is Black theater necessary? So at that time, I think it was maybe 2000, I don't know, but for a lot of Black nerds, intellectuals, we all sat by the radio listening to this debate. Why is Black theater necessary today? How do you define Black theater? Is Black theater only Black plays performed by Black people, written by Black people? Is it expanded? Has it contracted? Why do we need it today? And I thought about that, and I remember in history how Black people came to the American theater. In vaudeville, the 19th century, there was a point in American history in which the minstrel show, now at the time, it was a group of white men in blackface who performed as, quote, Black people in a caricatured and racist way. There was a period in time where this was the most popular form of entertainment in this country. It took the country by storm. White people, in particular, it was the number one form of entertainment. So think about that. So that the ramifications of that were for decades after Black people had to deconstruct this racist view of us that was put on us by white people, which required Black artists to begin to create and speak in their own voices about our own existence. Why is that important? One of the most popular characters in American theater started in burlesque, and this was the first time Irish immigrants saw a character that spoke, looked, and behaved like them. And this was a working class character of the Irish cop who came on stage, and it created a furor. It was pandemonium because this is the first time these people, that is me. That is me. This character is talking like me. He's talking about my life. And that's why it's important. When people come into the theater, or when we see a love story or a dramatic story, and we see ourselves in that drama, in that theater, we are more engrossed. We are more captivated. We all go home going, oh, that was me. That was me. I saw myself on that stage. That's why Black theater is important. That's why theater is important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my goodness, bro. I didn't know. Ooh, look at that. Nikki, did you hear that?
I heard it. And this is what I was going to add. This is why I love the truth telling part. This is why, when you say SF recovery, it's like you're going to tell the truth so that there can be some healing. It's like theater is healing. I don't, as Black people, it's like there's some form of lie that somebody told you about yourself, or that you end up feeling some kind of way. This would be an hours long conversation if we went down that rabbit hole
Correct.
of, and you and both of you have said some things, very heavy. I didn't think I was this. I didn't think I was this. I thought I was this. I didn't think, I don't want to unleash mine, but I think everybody has that story, and we want some place to, as you said, David, go see yourself, heal yourself. And and sometimes you don't have the language or anything because it happened to you when you were a young person.
Well, the act of seeing yourself or a part of yourself or your story put on in front of you gives you value. It gives you worth. That's where the whole term "I feel seen."
Yes.
I feel seen.
Yeah.
That's what that's about. Now, I wanted to talk. Jeffrey and I grew up in the '60s. We grew up in an environment where our parents took us to the theater, they took us to ballet, they took us to see the opera. Although we grew up in a really beautiful neighborhood surrounded by Detroit. So, in order to survive that Finkel bus and to survive in the streets as young boys, it required a certain level of schizophrenia. You had to speak and behave in a one way on the street and another way at home. Um,
They call it code switching now.
exactly. The greatest compliment I ever got, there was a black gentleman when I was at University of Michigan. He was one of the security, and he said, "Man, you know why I love you so much, David?" He said, "Because you don't talk down to us as black people. You talk to us, but you also make fun of the upper class black people and white people, but you don't make us feel bad." You know, that's great. I love that compliment because so many times performers or public figures, they get one part of it right, but not the other part. You understand?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like this person. They're making fun of us. We all seen they're black entertainers and performers as it's almost as if they use a certain part of the black existence for profit. And but they put it on like a face, like a costume to make money off of it. But they don't show any love for those parts. To really love black people, you have to love the high and the low, in my opinion.
Yeah. You gotta have if you want the rain, you gotta have the wind. You know.
Hmm.
I really remember something, when we were in, I don't know where we were. Well, I wasn't in high school yet, but we were somewhere. My mother took me somewhere. I think we were in New York or something like that. And there was this elevator operator, an elevator operator. I was running my mouth constantly. And the elevator operator said, young man, if you close your mouth and open your ears, you'll be surprised what comes in. And I was like, well, what's he talking about? And I kept on talking and kept on talking. And he said, wait a minute, you sound pretty good. Why don't you count for me? And he had me count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He said, now do it slow. And the entire time we were on the elevator, he was having me count to 10. I was like, why are you having me count to 10? And he said, as we were getting off, I love the way you sound. You sound like you know what you're saying. And I didn't get that for years and years. I mean, it took, well, I'll even say decades. It didn't really resonate. And I've had that experience where I've heard someone, or I've listened to an actor, or I've talked to an actor or a person or a doctor, anybody, and they are saying something with such internal knowledge that I'm proud of them. It gave me a feeling that I could do it. To Dave's point,
Yeah.
it tells you you can do this.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it's not over. You can
You know
do
what? You know what I love though about Black creativity. Years ago, there was a movie, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
We
The
getting a
Bee
few
Gees
pauses,
were
huh?
in. The Bee Gees were in it. It was not a very good movie, but I went to see it, and this group of young Black boys was sitting behind me, and they watched the movie. They said, "No, that's me. I'm right there. I'm Sergeant Pepper. No, I'm Sergeant Pepper. No, you can't be. I'm Sergeant Pepper. Okay, all right then. I'm that dude. I'm that dude." The point I'm trying to make is, before we were allowed in, or before space was made for us, we made our own space.
Yeah.
We made our own space. Me and my friends, we go see James Bond, whatever these movies, very few Black people in it. We put ourselves in it.
That's right.
People, especially as little kids, because children, that's why people talk about the energy of the child, the freedom of the child. They have yet to be broken.
Uh-huh.
They have yet to be um bridled.
Yeah.
You know, you take a horse, you have to train a horse to take the bit and not spit it out. So that's why children are awesome, because they're free.
They're free.
We spend the rest of our lives, especially as performers, trying to get back to that freedom. What Geoffrey was saying earlier, there are parts of him. We all have parts that we feel unsure of, vulnerable, a weakness. We feel it shows our weakness. Now, first of all, 9 times out of 10, that's what we feel. Anybody else, they don't even see it. These are things we carry. These are self shackles. We're chaining ourselves.
Say it
And
again, brother. What was that? Self shackles.
self-shackling, self-shackling. I can't tell you when, oh, I was so embarrassed. You didn't see that? You didn't see me at the party? I spilled a drink? No, we didn't see you at the party. When? When did that happen? Oh, it was horrible. I can never show my face. No, but we spend the rest of our lives trying to find, as adult performers, that freedom to create, because as artists you need the whole palette, just like a painter. You can't paint a picture if you only have one color. You want to be able to use the entire rainbow of emotions to create a character, an effective portrayal. I've given master classes and spoken with young artists, and that is the main uh, point and question. How can I get more free? How can I find that freedom? Because we've spent a lifetime of checking, editing, and monitoring ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to be able to do and to accept. That, hey,
Mhm.
man, there's nothing. Hey, you can dig. At my age, here's what the doctor said. You get up, you take your blood pressure. You get up, you take your glucose test. You get up, you check your pill bottle. Okay, I got the pills. Okay, I got everything. You check your ankle. You got your ankle brace. I mean, you got all of this preparatory stuff you got to do before you can leave the house. But if we, and I teach Tai Chi, and one of the gifts of teaching has shown me that, there's nothing wrong with preparation for your day. There's nothing wrong with preparing yourself, getting ready. The learning process for me was always wake up 3 minutes before you're supposed to be there, run out the door, and I mean, that was always the thing. And I knew how to operate in those are the greatest of circumstances. But
You still are.
things, yeah, thank you. But things are changing. I'm able to now take some time and be a little bit prepared for myself,
Yeah.
so I can accept whatever else is going out there. And I want one thing, and I'm going to pass the mic. It's like when we were out in the world, on the dark side. And before you would go out to cop some dope, you would literally say a prayer before you leave, because you got to walk through a minefield of Negroes and police and fake dope and who knows what else, just to go out and come back. We're talking maybe a 30, 40-minute, if you're lucky, you could be out and back in 40 minutes or 45 minutes. But you have to prepare for all of that stuff. And you would take greater care and preparation in going out to do some drugs, to get some drugs, your day, and preparing for your life experience in this next 24 hours.
Wow.
Anyway, I think I'm really happy with our conversation, because it lays the groundwork for why we do
What we do.
what we do. Fantastic and fun. But at the end of the day, the great experience is being able to show what I have learned, to be able to shed the skin of self-defense, walking around, as they say, with a mask on. I'm able to drop that mask. And that brief period, and here we go with that word, freedom.
Yeah.
Once you taste freedom, you cannot go back.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot go back. That's it in a nutshell. So with
Well,
that,
we all know the story, how elephants are trained.
yeah,
Well, elephants are trained when they're little babies, they tether them to a stake in the ground so they can't wander and move. Now, it starts with a chain. And as the elephant grows and gets larger, the chain gets smaller and smaller until you see a full grown elephant who all they have is a little leather strap holding them to this post. And people say, well, the elephant can break that. The elephant, that's just a little leather lanyard. Why doesn't he break it? Because he doesn't know he can break it.
that's right.
He doesn't think he can break it because he's been chained to that post his whole life. And he's been told, you can't break this. He's tried, but now he's been habituated to being a captive. We don't want to be captives. We want to be free, like Geoffrey said. We want to be free with our voices and to carry other people with us. I'll tell you one last story and then I'll be quiet. When I was doing Porgy and Bess on Broadway, we would host certain we would host certain audiences, and this one night there were a group of women in recovery. And my character was Sporting Life. He was the pimp, was trying to get Bess, get her to New York. He had that magic dust. So every time I walked on stage, I could hear this woman cackling. And, halfway through, as a performer, they're just those nights. Sometimes we reach you and sometimes we don't. So I really came off and there was a discussion session after the performance. But it really bugged me because I really felt like, okay, well, I was not able to reach this particular couple women that night. They didn't get the message. Every time I would come on, they would laugh. So they were at the discussion session, and I just sat there. And after a few minutes, I asked, "Ma'am, I recognize your voice. Why did you laugh and cackle like that every time I came on stage?" And she said, "Well, I was a prostitute, and you remind me of my pimp. So every time you came on stage, I had to laugh because that was my life." And I was like, wow, okay, so I did reach her. And she said, I laughed because he was always there. Everywhere I went, there he was, watching and controlling me. So she ended up teaching me a lesson that night. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no, yes, yes.
The
Thank you for
power.
that. That is why, ladies and gentlemen, we are here in discussion. I hope to have many more. We want to continue to further this. As Nikki said, we could go on for the next 4 hours, probably for the next 2 or 3 days on this topic. But this is the groundwork as to why Black theater, in particular, is a vehicle for our history and our existence. It lays the groundwork. It tells the story. It gave me a pattern. I could try on 1,000 shoes, performance shoes, and I was able to pick ones that I like, ones that I accepted, ones that made me feel, ones that didn't make me feel, but it elicited something, and it created a internal desire to grow, and that is something that you cannot teach. You can only experience.
Love it. Okay. We're frozen. It's a
I've been
dramatic.
too boring for you.
No, we love the dramatic pauses. That gave me extra. I love it. Just it's like the Frankie Beverly and Mays show. You got to have the freeze. You got to have it.
Freeze.
And thank you both. This has been wonderful. Thank you for sharing your stories. We've used a lot of powerful words today: healing, practice, prayer.
Freeze
I
day.
love the story about, you going out and you're saying that prayer before you get on the dark side so you'll make it back. That says a lot about faith. We could use that word in the powerful words that we've used: creativity, healing, inner child healing, freedom. This is
Yes,
why we do what we do. And I love that
absolutely.
you've done this genius thing called SF Recovery Theater. And if I could just
Hmm.
throw in something, Geoffrey, I think the last event that I was at, you were
Yes.
asking people to raise their hands. You're going through all the drugs.
Right,
Have you had a
right,
problem
right.
with this? People were raised. There was a row of ladies behind me. Every drug you name, they're like me. But then you started naming other things that we can be addicted to: the phone,
Yeah,
sex, food, social media,
right.
so many things. So we are all recovering from something. The feelings that you were talking about as young people, it's so many things that can be in here that nobody knows anything about. So the word recovery is really a call to the community. We're all recovering from something. And theater,
Absolutely.
specifically Black theater, is healing and the medicine for all those things. So, did you guys want to add anything else before we wrapped up?
I don't know. You kind of put the pin in it.
Well, just this is that Black theater is not just for Black people.
Thank you.
Black
Right.
theater is for people. You know what I mean? It's a moving and changing and all-consuming, when done well, experience for any person,
Yes.
any
I
color
don't know whether he,
can appreciate
on that note, to
theater.
back what he's, oh, yeah, go ahead.
Mhm.
You know?
Mhm.
You jump it back in,
I
Jeff?
think that uh, in to kind of piggyback on that and put something on the tail end, my brother Marvin, you know, Marvin, Marvin X had a play, and he says he wrote a poem, and the name of the poem is "Black History is World History."
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
Black
Absolutely.
theater is theater, you know.
Of course.
So
Well, well,
I'm
well,
gonna
why do you think certain segments of the government want to monitor, edit, and control American history? Well, because then they can control the racist views of others. If you are only taught a segment of what Black people are, you can see it in social media. When how white people react to videos, how Black people react to videos. And by the same token, Black people are just as responsible for sharing, creating, and passing on racist imagery and derogatory imagery about our own communities. And when we do it and we laugh, then white people look at us and say, well, I can laugh too. If everybody in the Black community refers to each other by using the N-word, then guess what? White people think, oh, I can do that too. If every Black woman is referred to as a bitch, then everyone thinks it's okay. It's fine. I can do it too.
Mhm.
That's not good.
Man,
No.
listen, that's another 2-hour rabbit hole.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
ironic. It's ironic that we have a podcast or we have a audio drama, and it's called The Psych, and it deals with that particular subject, the psycholinguistic psychosis around words and names, the N word, the N word. Then we travel to the B word. Then we travel to numerous other avenues that we have been conditioned to accept. But I think it really, today's point, really important that we squarely look and be brutally honest, you know,
The truth. Yep. Yep. This has been a really wonderful conversation.
about our own participation, physical or chemical. So with that, hopefully that you've enjoyed yourself. I appreciate you. Thanks, Dave, for coming in and dropping in on us.
Sure.
Dropping some of that brain knowledge and whatnot. You know, he got a big head and he got like all kinds of stuff. Falls out sometimes, Nikki. It's just jewels.
Listen.
And
There are no small heads on this show right now. This is we all
you,
know.
Nikki, have been very, very helpful and as a catalyst to this conversation. So I want to thank you as well.
Thank you. Let me tell you something. Legacy and liberation, that's the name I came up with. And I can't think of any better conversation because liberation is really finally letting go of the lie that's been in your head the whole time.
That's right.
You know, breaking free and letting the dang thing go. Sometimes we think we have something that thing has something on us. We want to hold on to it because we don't know any other way to be. So, you know, this has been quite a liberating conversation, and it gives everybody hope to say, well, you know what, maybe I can. You know, I always say that I'm not doing my job very well if I just tell you the sparkly side of my story. There's other parts of the story that could be an activation point for somebody else. That's why it's so important for us to tell the truth, be ready to face the truth. And you know, there's again many rabbit holes we can go down, but I think this is a great start. And I know somebody will reach out and say, "Hey, let's do that again. I want to hear more."
We will.
Of that.
We will. We will.
Yes. This has been really awesome. We thank you for being not just a part of the conversation, but thank you for saying yes to doing this takeover. You know, if we started the conversation thinking, you know, SF Recovery, Nikki Thomas TV, it wouldn't be a collabo that was, but it was a very smooth collabo because
No,
the
this is
conversation took
fantastic.
us to some great places. So again, thank you for being a genius in our community, the one and only Geoffrey Grier, director of SF Recovery Theater, and legendary entertainer David Alan Grier. I mean, we're family at this point. I mean, I got to claim both of y'all as cousins or something. It's just, yeah.
Please do.
We appreciate you and everything that you've done. what was the story somebody just told about, you being on stage, David, that laugh. If we don't know anything else, as Black people, we will handle that trauma with some laughter. If we don't know anything else.
Absolutely.
So,
We will.
right. So what
We're going to find the laughter.
Yes, we will.
Well, I'm gonna say this in the words of the brother Jesse Jackson that we used to hear on TV when we were little kids. You are somebody. Say it. I am somebody.
That's right. That's
And
right.
that mantra is a mantra that, it's a shame that we have to recite it, but it's a blessing that we have it.
That's right. That's it.
Yeah.
It's so simple. That's so simple. It's so real and it's so empowering. So family, if you believe in what we are doing, not just in this conversation, but here on YouTube or wherever you're watching, there's work for you to do too. Please support us. We're living in some wild, crazy times. Subscribe. Don't just watch. Don't just scroll. Subscribe to SF Recovery Theater and Nikki Thomas TV wherever you're watching this, preferably on YouTube. Tell a friend about it and share the video. The work and the healing can happen in so many different ways. We appreciate that you say yes to not only this conversation, but committing to continuing conversations and the work in this community. Thank you both, Geoffrey, David, the Grier brothers, my new cousins. You know what I'm saying? Next time one of y'all cooks, I'm popping up over at your house.
You got it, baby. You got it.
All right.
Thank you so much for being a part of Nikki Thomas TV, the conversation today. There are no limits, only liberation on Nikki Thomas TV. Thank you so much.
Power to the people.